Welcome to this deep dive into our stack of recent news transcripts and statistics. Today we are looking at Thailand, specifically its controversial gun ownership and the sweeping new crackdown.
Yeah, and our mission today is to really unpack how Thailand became the gun capital of ASEAN and, why the government's latest solution is sparking such a massive backlash.
Right, so before we dig into the actual policy, just picture this for a second. You are walking down a bustling street in Southeast Asia. Statistically, for every 7 people you pass, there is one privately owned firearm.
Which is kind of wild to think about. I mean, that is over 10 million guns in civilian hands.
Oh, wow. So that ranks them #1 in the region for gun ownership, right?
Exactly, yeah. And the mechanism behind that massive surplus, it actually didn't start with cartel smuggling or some black market boom. It began with a government spreadsheet.
Wait, a spreadsheet?
Yeah, so it stems from this thing called the welfare gun program. Initially, it was just a pragmatic solution to a logistics problem. State-issued weapons for police officers were sometimes, really old or just in short supply.
Okay, so the state allowed officers to buy affordable, imported firearms for their duties. That makes sense.
Right, but it didn't stay restricted to just the police. Around 2009, loopholes expanded that eligibility. So suddenly, state enterprise workers, local officials, and even MPs could get in on this.
It is almost like an exclusive VIP club where suddenly everyone gets a platinum membership. I mean, didn't anyone flag that this easy access was creating a national surplus?
You would think so, but they could buy these guns on installment plans. And the detail that really catalyzed the surplus was the delayed transfer clause. After 5 years, owners could legally sell the gun to a civilian.
Oh. So it effectively turned a government subsidy into a financial maturity bond.
Exactly. When low-paid officials realized they could buy a subsidized asset on an installment plan, hold it for 5 years, and then flip it on the civilian market for a profit, well, the program morphed.
Right.
It basically became a state-sponsored arms pipeline. So the original intent was duty readiness, but the economic incentive just drove hundreds of thousands of weapons into the secondary market.
So the government created an unintended supply shock.
Yeah.
And now, driven by that surplus and some really tragic recent events, they're pulling the emergency brake.
Yeah, they halted carry licenses, the P-12 licenses, and tightened ownership rules across the board.
But looking at the crime statistics from the gun associations in our sources, the math on this crackdown really doesn't add up, does it?
No, it doesn't at all.
Yeah.
Legal guns were involved in roughly 6,900 incidents, but illegal or modified weapons, those accounted for over 20,000.
That is a massive gap. I mean, the sources point out that crimes committed with knives actually outnumber those committed with legal firearms.
Right, so a policy targeting the legal framework fundamentally misdiagnoses the threat landscape. The people utilizing the legal 5-year transfer pipeline, or holding those P-12 licenses, are largely off-duty officers and vetted citizens.
So by halting those licenses, the state essentially criminalizes the off-duty cop carrying a weapon home.
Yeah, exactly.
If the vast majority of crimes use black market weapons, isn't punishing legal owners kind of treating the symptom instead of the disease?
It really is. It leaves the 85% of gun crimes, which, stem from the thriving unregistered market, completely unaddressed.
It feels like going on a strict diet while keeping a giant cake on the counter.
Yeah.
The crackdown focuses on the people who already registered their weapons.
And this disconnect gets even more pronounced when you look at how these laws are actually enforced outside of Bangkok.
Oh, right, because the capital dictates policy, but rural provinces operate on, deeply ingrained cultural norms.
Exactly. Prime Minister Anutin is currently championing this strict gun control initiative. Yet, at a recent anniversary event for village headmen in Koh Phangan, local officials literally handed out 5 shotguns as raffle prizes.
Which is wild because the Prime Minister actively tried to ban that exact practice years ago.
Yep.
How do you convince the public to disarm when local officials are raffling off shotguns like party favors? It really highlights a massive rift.
It does. Firearms in rural areas act as symbols of local authority and status. You just can't legislate that cultural cachet away from a desk in the capital.
So the national policy is fighting 2 separate battles: an economic pipeline that flooded the country with weapons, and a cultural reality where local leaders still view guns as legitimate prizes of authority.
Yeah, and when enforcement contradicts itself on a national stage like that, it severely undermines public trust in the entire disarmament effort.
It really leaves you to consider how sweeping policies in your own life might just address the optics of a problem rather than its actual root cause.
Precisely. And as the critics in the sources pointed out, if tightening legal loopholes only restricts law-abiding citizens, we are left with a really tough question.
Right. Like, how can a nation practically disarm a thriving, invisible black market that basically ignores the law entirely? Something for you to mull over as we wrap up. Keep questioning the numbers.